You're back in the loop. With global economic uncertainties the focus of policymakers, now they turn to the domestic economy as a key focus area. Amid a heavy push for infrastructure and strong household consumption, what specific areas should the government focus on to minimize risks and to maximize the country's growth potential? Joining us to tackle these priorities is Dr. Victor Abola, Senior Economist at the University of Asia and the Pacific. Dr. Abola, thanks so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Quintin.
Well, at an earlier forum this morning, Dr. Ben Diokno, and now the Secretary of Budget Management, talked about the fact that, or the possibility that you'd have a double-digit growth by 2020 for the economy. Do you think this is feasible as a fellow economist?
Next year, you mean?
2020, sir.
By 2020, it's possible, yes. But I doubt very much for next year. No? I think that we're still, if we don't have foreign investments, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, Dr. Well, we had a chart here that basically showed the gradual projection here by economists, and looking at basically at the top line here, just 8% in 2022. But again, Secretary Diokno looking basically at exceeding that, and these are the figures you were talking about.
Yes.
Certainly a little more gradual in terms of this. And you think, sir, to get to that figure and to exceed that figure, what specific areas should the government be investing in?
Well, we know already infrastructure is one of them. No? And I'm quite glad that they resolved right away the second connector between NLX SLX.
Okay, so you're looking at these key infrastructure projects as well.
And then the North-South Rail, that's a good area also that they were able to move fast. As a matter of fact, I think that they have to be credited with having moved fast on the infra projects and PPP, because we tallied the approvals. In the first 3 months, they had 220 billion approved compared to like 46 billion of Pinoy in the 4 years.
So you basically look at multiples there. But I mean, if you're thinking about it, we also look at the budget deficit as a percentage of GDP. That's tripling, close to 3% of GDP right now.
Right.
The question I have is, Dr. Abola, are you concerned from a spending point of view if they can get the absorptive capacity to spend for these infrastructure projects and get more private sector activity there?
I think that the important thing is to get it spent, right? So while they're targeting that, I don't think, first of all, that they will be able to manage it, to reach it. No? First, because of the absorptive capacity. Second is because once you have a lot of PPPs in place, you add that to your budget for infrastructure, that will bring you closer to 8%. So that's pretty high figure. No? What I'm seeing is that even if they don't reach that target 3% of GDP, it would be sufficient stimulus for the economy.
Well, certainly it's unprecedented right now in terms of at least the last administration.
We've had a lot of years that we had exceeded 3%, especially in the earlier part of the new millennium.
Yes.
So, but I don't think that's something we need to be worried about, because right now interest rates are low and our debt ratios are quite low. So.
Secretary Diokno was talking about the fact that it's 40% debt to GDP is 40%, coming down 5% by 5% to 35% by the end of Duterte's administration. But if you look at the sectors themselves, I mean, there's been a resurgence in agriculture, at least 3% in the third quarter. Tell us about what kind of investments, apart from infrastructure, does the government have to do to make sure that the sector contributes equitably to the pie?
The agriculture is already there on the table, right? What I'd like to just bring out is the fact that the latest poverty ratings showed a very sharp decline from 2012 to 2015. It was just released this month. And I estimated that there were about 3.4 million people who were brought out of poverty. That's over 3 years.
So above the line now this
So
time.
they're above the line. So they're now part of your consumer group. So if they manage to do the projected growth rates of 6.5 to 7.5 at least, or 7 to 8, that should bring you another 1.2 million a year added to your consumer base. So that's going to provide a strong, very strong consumer base.
Well, certainly, I mean, 80% of the economy, around that much, is driven by consumption. But let's talk about purchasing power. Let's look at the peso to dollar exchange rate right now. You're looking at this chart here. It's basically down by around 6% vis-a-vis the dollar. Relatively speaking, though, after the Trump win, which is one of the things they were looking at, it was actually among the less affected
Yeah.
ones. If you think about the baht, the yuan, and the peso, but think about this trend right here. Where do you expect it to settle? And at the same time, which sectors will have to take advantage of this?
Well, really, the only reason why it hasn't hit more than 50 is because the central bank is intervening. It should be, next year it should be 50, 50, 50, 50. I've seen projections of 51. That's not going to be something we should be worried about because we have very large OFWs. These contribute not only to consumption spending but also to sustaining the growth in the residential sector construction.
So even
boom.
with a single-digit growth, you're still looking at $25 billion worth about so much.
It's already 30.
Yes, I mean, so you're looking at least and you're looking at for that
Oh, yeah.
3 year, and then you're also looking at the BPO remittances because that's trade and services
Correct,
also. You
yeah.
think that the stronger dollar will help the services go better.
Yeah. And if you combine it with a better agricultural outlook, then your consumer base is actually going to be fairly strong. But what's been driving the economy has been really investments. Capital imports, capital goods imports have been rising over 20% in the last 12 months.
And capital goods formation also up with double digits
Yeah,
as well.
but in terms of monthly,
Yes.
because we track it every month, in terms of capital goods imports, over 20% for the last 12 months.
Dr. Abola, finally, if you just since you mentioned BSP intervention, I mean, how sustainable is this intervention given the forex reserves and all the other, and what are they doing specifically to make sure that the currency stays, within manageable limits?
I think that it's a waste of resources to try to defend the currency with, since it's a regional, it's the U.S. dollars that's the one strengthening. There's no point in defending the currency because besides we know it works for the Philippines. It works very positively. OFW,
Especially
as I said,
trade and
OFW
services,
then
OFW, and dollar values coming in, spring
the
consumption.
exporters, yes, very good. And so I don't think that we should be worried about the peso getting weaker. I'm worried that what's happening is because we have let the peso stay too strong for a long while, we've seen the current account surplus diminishing.
And so the idea there is just to sustain the economy, so you have more
You have to
coming
have
in.
more
Exactly.
current account surplus back to
exactly.
where you were seeing them before.
Well, one thing to look at as we close this interview is the signposts that we're looking at. A lot of externalities coming in, manufacturing index from China coming out, Fed market meeting also as well, and OPEC. Tell us about what signposts you as an economist are looking at in terms of how the policymakers should navigate this environment.
Well, of course, a very important thing to look at is not so much what's going to happen in the US. We know practically everybody agrees that December they'll hike it. Is how many times they will do it in 2017. My guess is between 1 to 2 at the most.
There may be a quarter percentage.
Yeah, quarter percentage. It's very gradual, very gradual. That's what Yellen has been emphasizing, which means that monetary policies need not be overly concerned about the inflation because the oil prices are not going to go up anytime soon.
Well, certainly a benign environment for an expansionist policy with the administration. Dr. Abola, thank you so much for your time and appreciate your insights.
Thank you.